This is the Dremel 220 workstation, aka the mini drill press. And if you're drilling a lot of small holes with a rotary tool, this attachment is a must-have. In this video, I will show you how to set up the workstation. We're going to take a look at the different features and functions, and I will show you some of the different tasks that you can do with it. Here are all the parts that we need to set it up. We can start at the base. Place this nut inside of this hole and screw in the bolt. Now we can place the metal pipe inside a hole and tighten the bolt so the pipe does not spin. Place the drilling contraption onto the pipe and tighten the blue lever at the back. Next, put on the bit and wrench holder over the drilling contraption. This one is optional. If you want to store your bit somewhere else, you don't need it. This only fits over the thicker bottom portion of the pipe. Then we pull out the inner pipe and twist it to lock it in place. Place this plastic cap at the top of the pipe and insert the flex shaft holder. Now we are basically all set up and ready for drilling. All we have to do is to attach the Dremel. To attach the Dremel, we remove the nose cap from the tool. Then we place the Dremel inside the holder. At the bottom of the holder, there is a plastic nut that we need to turn counterclockwise to secure the tool. You can start off by hand, and when it gets too tight, you can finish it off with a provided wrench. You can use most of the Dremel models with these kinds of threads at the front with this attachment. But some of the newer models, like the Dremel 8260, is a little bit wide at the base. So it will rub a little bit against the attachment when in use. This might also tilt it at a slight angle, but not much, so you can still use it for drilling. Let's take a look at the different features of the attachment. First off, we have the base. The base has holes for screws on all of the edges. So if you want to fortify the base, you can attach it to a piece of wood, which will make it more stable and easier to secure to the bench with clamps. The base also has measurements on centimeters on the left side and inches on the right side. These 4 slots at the base is used for attaching clamps, but I don't really use clamps when drilling with a Dremel because of the low torque of the tool. You can adjust the height of the drilling by loosening this lever at the back and sliding the contraption up and down. The max height you can drill with this is 8.5 inches. If you remove everything on top, it is possible to secure the drill press on the smaller upper pipe if you for some reason need to drill or work with a very large piece. Then you can work on pieces that are 17 inches tall. The bit holder gives you the ability to store bits. You can use this slot for the wrench, this is for the drill bits, and these holes are for bits in general. The inner pipe at the top can be pulled out pretty far. This is helpful when you want to use the flex shaft. You can rotate the Dremel to 90 degrees and anything in between by loosening these 2 screws. This is the depth stop. I am missing the screw for this, but if you want to drill several holes at the same depth, you just tighten this screw at the depth you want. You can also tighten these tiny brass screws to increase the friction of the lever if you don't like the lever to be so springy. These slots on the side is for securing the cord so it does not get in the way. This is how the attachment works from the inside. When you pull the lever, this cogwheel pushes the Dremel down and the tension spring drags it back up. It is also possible to change bits while the Dremel is attached. It is easiest to turn it to 90 degrees, hold the shaft lock button, turn the collet nut, and remove and insert the new bits. With the Workstation 220, you can drill a lot of tiny holes really quickly. And that is the main function of this attachment. Dremel has 2 common drill bit sets. First, we have the general twist bit set that can be used for a wide range of materials, including metal. The biggest drill bit in this set is 1/8 of an inch and the smallest is 1/32 of an inch. So you can make really tiny holes with it, but go slow with the smaller ones, they can break easily. With these smaller drill bits, we need to use the multi-chuck or change to a smaller collet. They also have a brad point bit set which can be used for wood and wood-like materials. You can actually drill holes that are up to 1/4 of an inch with these ones. Because the Dremel does not have that much torque, you want to use the speed to your advantage. I find it works best at around 20,000 RPMs, but this will depend on the size of the drill bit and the material. So don't be afraid to mess around with the speeds. Some Dremel models will have a hard time when using lower speeds. Here I am using the 8220 at 5000 RPMs. It bogs down fairly quickly, but at higher speeds it has no problems drilling. The Dremel model with the most torque is the 8260 and the 8250. These works best for drilling at lower speeds if needed. The contraption is built up with a fair amount of plastic. The build quality is good, but there is a tiny bit of slack and movement. If you put the sanding drum in the Dremel and lower it into the hole in the middle, you can use the workstation as some sort of spindle sander. This works great for cleaning and shaping thin plywood pieces or basswood sheets after being cut. You can also shape and round over edges fairly easily. The only problem I had with this is that it gunks up the sanding drum fairly quickly. Using a lower RPM will reduce this. The wood will also not burn as quickly. Reposition the height of the sanding drum frequently so you don't sand too long at the same spot. You can also use the lever to move the sanding drum up and down. But then you have to control the workpiece with one hand, which might sacrifice some accuracy. The workstation works surprisingly well for flattening or decreasing the size of small boards. So if you have a small flat wood piece like this and you want it to be a little bit smaller, you can use the workstation. I am using a flat router bit with cutting edges on the tip. I set the Dremel at the height I want. I recommend only removing a little bit of material each time. If you need to remove more, it is best to do it in several passes. I set the Dremel at a high RPM, and while keeping the material flat to the surface, I pass it through the routing bit. Don't force the material through the routing bit. Be careful with your fingers, use safety glasses, and make sure that this screw is tight. And this is the finished product. There are some cut marks, which is to be expected, but you can quickly remove these with some rough sandpaper. You can also use the workstation if you're doing a lot of inlays or making designs in wood. Let's make a quick bow tie inlay. We remove most of the inner material quickly with a flat routing bit. Then clean up the edges with a chisel. And now we have a slot for our bow tie. Or maybe you want to fill epoxy in it. You can probably do a better job than me here. My chisel work is not the best. You can texture material really quickly with the workstation. Again, I'm using one of the routing bits with round cutting edges at the end. This bit set has come in really handy, I must say. Set the height of the Dremel just above the workpiece, so you barely have to move the lever. Set the Dremel to a high RPM and texture away. This has to be the quickest way for texturing flat pieces. When you are finished, you can sand away all the tear out. In this case, it was actually better to use the flattening method I showed you earlier in the video. You can use a wide range of bits for doing this, but in my experience, I found that bits with proper cutting edges works best. Using, for example, a diamond-coated bit that grinds away the material is more likely to burn the wood and be less efficient. It will also wear down a bit fairly quickly. But this will, of course, depend on the type of material you use, the RPMs, and a different bit. When you're finished texturing, the bit might be really hot. So don't instantly touch the bit after you are finished. You can turn the Dremel 90 degrees when you want to work at a different angle. This can be helpful for a wide range of tasks. I do not use this as much, but it is good for doing things like sanding, polishing, and more. You also get to have two hands on the workpiece for that extra bit of precision. But do not do this with any bits that can harm you, like for example cutting metal. We want to keep our fingers. It is best to stick to the abrasive materials and polishing. All in all, I can recommend the Workstation 220. It is a versatile attachment and the price is usually pretty good for what you get, around 40 or 50 bucks.